Hello, Las Vegas, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Golf at the Park, Angel Park Golf Club's weekly interview show. Thank you for watching and liking and subscribing, most importantly, to the channel. We really appreciate it. This week, we've got a writer. So, in continuing the show's interest in both golf and content, we've got someone who's been using a medium for a long, long time. Also worked in radio, and I'd like to introduce Fairway Jay to you all. Fairway Jay, thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you, Jed.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. And so let's just start at the top. The way that we go with this is we'll start with golf. What was the first time you were ever introduced to the game? Like, how did you get your first set of clubs, or how did you end up on a golf course?
My parents ended up joining a club, and I had friends that were in high school, and I didn't get started until about then. So I had a number of friends that played on the high school golf team, and I started to pick it up and enjoyed it. And from there, a lot of my good friends, still to this day from high school, we play, and I've been on a number of trips overseas with them as well. And that's where I started. And then through college, more friends, and just kept playing through there.
That's so fun, but never competitively, right? You
Correct.
didn't play on a high school team.
Correct.
So let's take us into college, I'm guessing. Did you go to school for writing, or did you just start writing?
No, I had a background, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I got out of college and I went into real estate, had some family in that, and residential real estate, and then turned that into working for builders. When I moved out here in in 2000, I moved out to Las Vegas, so I've been here over 20 years, and worked for a number of home builders, and I kept my passion going for not only sports and betting and handicapping, but poker as well. So I was kind of living the dream, and then I had a chance to start posting things about sports and betting in forums, and someone took an interest, and then I started in the advisory business, and we had a really, really popular show here in Las Vegas doing radio.
I remember.
And that's way before legalization. So talking about the games and betting and the odds, and so it's come a long way, and I ended up working and moving on from that side of the business and getting into a lot of content in the after 2010, and knowing that legalization was ultimately seemingly coming about 2016 as it ultimately hit in 18. I just picked up other opportunities and write for a number of mediums now.
That's fun. So you've been in Vegas over 20 years, and I know that through talking to you that you don't necessarily play golf a lot anymore. But I also know that you've played here for a while in the early 2000s. So let's talk about how much golf you've played in Las Vegas. We'll get to the trips in a minute, but let's focus on here locally and talk a little bit about your time at Angel Park.
Angel Park was my go-to place when I first moved out here. I always had the membership, and I had friends that came out here for 5 or 6 straight years. We'd play out here. They'd come in from out of town in the spring. I'm from Minneapolis, so the cold, and they'd come in and we'd play here, and we'd go up to Mesquite. And I played a fair amount of golf, and I was decent. I'm like a bogey golfer. I had some friends that were really good, and then just personal time. I had children, so children cut into my time,
Yes.
and I'm working 80-hour weeks doing working for home builders, and then pursuing my passions of sports and handicapping, which I got an opportunity to do. So golf kind of got put on the side a little bit, but love the game, and my interest to continue it has now that I cover pretty much every weekly PGA Tour event through most of the season, and I write about them and all of the tools that you now have with analytics and statistics. I still handicap it, I still bet it, but also I provide it on some of the mediums, including Forbes.
That's so interesting. I want to get back to content, but let's switch gears really quick to your golf trips, because you've been on a lot. We could cover them all, but let's pick your favorite one or two and tell us the stories about how they went and your favorite parts of them and.
Well, golf is a tremendous game, of course, but unless you have some friends as well to enjoy the time with, those are the special times and the memories. And along with where I used to play in college, and then with some of my friends back home, out here I've had some great trips where I've had guys come out. there's a couple courses here in town that I still haven't played that I want to at some point. But even going up to Mesquite, there's some tremendous golf courses as well. And Las Vegas is really a mecca. But the memorable ones that I went to both Scotland in 1994 and Ireland in 1999 with some of my really good friends. And a few dads went. And it's interesting now; those dads would be nearly my age now to think that they were going and we were playing. So I've played most of the courses on the British Open or the Open Championship Rota. I played I played St Andrews Old and New, Troon, Murfield, which is private, incredible, Carnoustie, Turnberry Old and New, the oldest of them, Prestwick, and then some inland courses there. But it's really to see the home of golf and to be able to play in those conditions, and you have caddies. It's just it's a memorable experience, and you're traveling with your best friends. So.
Yes, the people who have done it, and we've had a couple on the show, all talk about how great that trip specifically is, Scotland. But I wanted to add that my father's done both Scotland and Ireland, and he happens to prefer Ireland. Did you prefer Scotland or did you prefer Ireland?
I was a better golfer when I went 5 years later.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So when I went back to Ireland, I'd taken some more lessons, and I got into single digits as a handicap, and so Ireland was also tremendous. Ballybunion. There's some courses there that many people don't hear about
Right.
because they're not on the rotation, but Old Head. Just the scenic and the sights, and then the courses are phenomenal. Yeah, a couple others that have made the rotation we've played. I think because it was my first experience, Scotland was probably the most memorable, having done that. And then the courses that you see during the Open Championship, we played a lot of.
That's fun, right? That lives on forever
Yes.
because you just get to keep remembering your trip, which is great. Favorite golf course on the trip?
Probably Carnoustie. I joke that the old course probably wasn't in my top three at St. Andrews of that, which phenomenal, of course, and to see it and spend time with friends. But Carnoustie and Turnberry was the first one we played, and it ultimately was one of my favorites as well. One experience for all of us that are in our age and that remember some of the great golf movies, Caddyshack, was an all-time favorite. And at Ballybunion, as we were about to tee off and we're waiting, we had Bill Murray coming up the 18th green. And we saw Bill Murray a couple times on that trip at another course as well. And, you're not in awe of like maybe some actors and stuff, but for those that watch the golf, to see Bill Murray was phenomenal. And our friends, back then we're in our 20s, and it was pretty cool.
Bill Murray is a golf crossover legend.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to see him, we were kind of watching. He's coming up 18, and he walked right past us, and we joked a little bit with him, and then talked to him later, and we run into him in another course later. So it's pretty neat.
That's awesome. All right, let's come back to content. So you dabbled in radio, and then you became a handicapper, and you were going on message boards and writing. When did you start pursuing long form content writing, where you're writing pieces on the tour and other things that we're going to get to later today? But when did you start your long form writing?
So obviously the mediums have come a long way from when I started in 2003 and broke onto the scene with some really good success, picking winners in NFL. We had a newsletter, right? So we have newsletters back then, and I'm writing and creating a lot of content back then for people to just digest and take in the information and stats. I was always into studying statistics and how to use them and figure things out, like the puzzles of handicapping. And then long form came later as I got out of the industry of selling and advisory after 2011. Had some personal things going on and my children, and then I just started writing more. So I'm producing content for others. But the long form came, I think, a little later. I started writing for Forbes, and just as legalization was coming, I got introduced to somebody to discuss that. They wanted to. So Forbes has, the main lifestyles, and now they have a sports money. But also, I write under the vices section, which is sex, drugs, and sports betting, right?
That's awesome. By the way, you so nonchalantly said I write for Forbes. I wrote for Forbes. I love that, and I love that you were in the vice category.
Yes.
I need to go back and read those vice category pieces. I'll bet I would love all of those.
But now it's so much more accepted now, right? So
Of course.
just like poker, comes out of the shadows and the smoky rooms, and sports betting, now it's incredible. The hypocrisy of the NFL for years, no gambling, and now they're embracing the sports books. They're getting paid. They're letting them sponsor. So everyone's making money. So not everybody. The margins are actually pretty tight for the sports books themselves, and they're spending, the biggest FanDuels and DraftKings are spending enormous amounts of money just to get the customer. But to see where it's gone from where it was is quite a turnabout. And I started writing with Forbes because they saw, I think, that as well. And I just giving just information. Sometimes we put out picks, but I actually use a lot of my contacts to provide, quote them and give more insight, because my goal was always to present the sports betting in a positive light to the consumers, because it's about engagement and entertainment, and then give the professionals that I've corresponded with insight about a little bit more on the betting side. And so I'm always posting the odds, and in golf, when I write about the weekly events, it's about obviously odds to win the tournament, but then the matchups and some of the prop bets that are available, which, as most that are following or even getting into sports betting, the props and the betting and the live betting during the game have really taken hold and are most popular.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And it's just more and more gambling, which is a vice, but it's fun.
Hopefully, people responsibly do it and
Yes,
keep it within line.
We get, when we talk about alcohol here, we try to, as often as possible, say responsible. Let's be responsible. Everything in moderation.
As if you're on a golf course, right? You want to be as well.
That's right. Fairway Jay. Let's talk about that. How'd you end up with that name?
So my friends, as I golfed, I wasn't hitting enough fairways, but it kind of had a rhyme and a ring. Some of my friends came up with it, and then I rolled that in as I got into doing radio. I wanted something that would catch on a little easier and people to remember, and I was, as I was in this forums and then we talked, one of the guys that brought me on said I saw Fairway Jay and briefed me on that a little bit, and we used that as kind of my moniker and introduction, and that's what I've gone by. I haven't probably branded it as well as I could over the years if I wanted to utilize it more, but that's what I go by, and I use a lot of golf puns in my
I love that.
in my writing.
Do you don't play as regularly as you used to? Do you consume golf content, or are you pretty much just consuming gambling content? What you're consuming? So
as you know, when you're reading in the media, there's a lot of clicks, right? They're looking for headlines or catchy, and a lot of news stories that are coming across Twitter, or key injuries, or Travis Kelce's now got Taylor Swift. And people kind of gravitate and like to consume that. But I like to give some insight into the sports betting side, and in golf, which is tremendous opportunities. The menu of options to bet on golf are many, right? So I write about golf, and I've always had an interest in digging into statistics and analyzing the data. And then in betting, it's about how you interpret the data and how you ultimately make decisions to bet. Not just trends, which I say many are mostly...
That's the old handicapping way, right?
Many of them meaningless, but still that's kind of the lazy way to put things out to the media that write about it. But the pros are digging into the situations and the fundamentals and the matchups more so, and that's what I follow. But the golf has got so many ways to bet on it, so I write about it and use statistical stuff, and then some of the storylines as well. And now the Ryder Cup coming up, I've been a kind of, wow, the consumption of people just interested in the Ryder Cup information, even before we now have the pairings that'll be out in the next day before it starts.
For the Shriners.
As well. So yeah, the Shriners event, I've been coming to that for a number of years. I do get media access into some of the things, some of the events. I go to Golden Knights games and I write about the Knights and odds and the matches and the games, but also as well I've been coming to the Shriners for a number of years. I don't get out here every day, but I come out and cover some of that and can do interviews if I elect to and get some of that at times, and I go to other events as well.
Well, we're gracious that you elected to do this one. Thank
Love
you. Do you have a favorite sport to handicap?
Football's always been the betting king, NFL mostly, but I love college football. and clearly the NFL. And the reason the NFL has been so popular is it was really the NFL as a league was formed by gamblers way back, and then because of fantasy football, which is before we moved out here, right before 2000, you're working with your friends, and you're going through books back then instead of now all of the digital consumption. But I think that's because the most interest in the NFL is because it's year round. People want to hear about the players and the drafts, but they can engage and be entertained, and also the fantasy football aspect ties into the gambling, and that ironically is how the monsters in the sportsbook industry, the FanDuels and DraftKings, are dominant, because they had that fantasy before legalization of sports. So they had built up the customer base so strong, now they can just easily transition those customers into, now we've got betting available, and they're trying to keep those customers, versus the next biggest star right there, BetMGM and Caesars, which I like to support them because they're here in Las Vegas, along with the other books here, Circa and the Superbook, the biggest sports books, and even the Boyd Gamings and the stations. Because I live out here, I like to really support them and give them the due, because they've been doing it the longest and had to stick with the regulations of Nevada for so many years. But now it's a marketing machine, right?
Well,
it's a marketing machine.
Let's do a quick Vegas history. I know this was before you moved here, but I also know you're going to know all of this very well, probably better than me. So the one at the Hilton, which is now the Westgate, is now kind of the granddaddy, right? It's the big sports book. But before that, was it the Stardust, if I remember right?
Yes, ironically, you bring that up. I had my name on the marquee back in the day at the Stardust.
At the Stardust?
I was on the Friday night handicapping contest, and I didn't do well in my one appearance. Unlike today, where you got week after week, you might be in a contest, or the Super Contest is 5 picks every week, which I've done a number of times and finished high in that top 5 or 6%, 60% hitting, but that doesn't win it, right? And I don't do that every year because they just don't pay out enough spots. It's kind of like poker tournament will pay out the top 10%. Well, these contests, they're paying out maybe 3%, and it was less years ago when I'm hitting 60% and doing pretty well in it. But the Stardust was the go-to place for the biggest gamblers in town here, and they'd meet there. Stardust was also referred to as the Stardust line, which is they put out the first betting lines on the games as they came out in the. Just like today, when the Circa now is the first place to put out college football lines Sunday at 11 a.m. here Pacific, for the following week's games, the pro bettors are pounding those bets, and you'll see significant line moves here early in the season. 2 to 5 point line moves on the spreads, and even more 4, 5, 6 point moves on the totals, because they're allowed to go in there and hit them for a couple thousand, bet it again, and then go get some more and.
You would think Circa would go hire better handicappers, right? But maybe a great handicapper wouldn't want to work at a sports book because they can't. Then they don't have the opportunity to beat it.
Yeah, Circa, and I'll give clearly the Westgate and the Hilton, as it had been to many of us known. They've been. Certainly the Superbook, and the Superbook model was kind of followed by Derek Stevens to build this tremendous sports book. That's what he saw and wanted to envision having something even bigger and better. But their models, especially Circa now, taking the pros bets, big bets, and as well as Westgate. They've always been real supportive of the sports bettor, and they've been kind of setting the example here for years, and yet now nationally they're not as big. But both of those are in other states now. They've expanded and grown, but not to the extent that DraftKings, FanDuel, and or Caesars and BetMGM have. But they've always been tremendous, I think, as well for people here in Nevada.
I'm also curious. You probably have some stories of celebrity gambling or wagers, right? Do you have anything maybe like juicy that's fun?
No, I report on some of it because, again, it gets interest, right? And people that follow boxing have known for years, Floyd Mayweather was a huge draw. Well, Floyd Mayweather bets a lot of money, right? And Phil Mickelson, obviously, we see what's coming out now. But Billy Walters has been a great story. I haven't read his book yet that just came out, but you need to get a copy and read that. He is the ultimate and the biggest gambler. You talk to the Johnny Avellos, who are now at DraftKings, but was at Wynn and Bally's, and Kenny White, who had a service that provided the betting lines to the sports books. You talk to them, and they'll tell you that he was the whale, and he's the biggest, and he moved lines, and the pro bettors that follow. But the recreational bettors, like a Floyd Mayweather, who have the money and they bet a lot of money, they're welcome to place their bets. They're not nearly as sharp, and they don't have the team working with them that's handicapping. To be a handicapper, you'll see a lot of covering all the sports, and I love to cover all the sports, but there's only so much time, and to really do it right, you need connections, and that's when I write. I post. I reach out to some of the people that I've known for years because they're doing the work, and I like to give that to the consumer who's reading it, real life information, and from respected people that are, doing the work and know the analytics and statistics, and then I give them the comments and the quotes to help the people understand it.
That's awesome. All right. I want to get to the reason why we got Fairway Jay to come in. You're wearing a blue golf shirt that says Golf's Fifth Major, if you can't see it at home, but you probably can. That's it. That's the introduction. Why don't you go now?
I'm anxious to hear, as you talk to the founder and originator of this tournament, the Lakeshore Golf. It's the Lakeshore Open on a residential property here in Las Vegas for over 20 years, and I was fortunate to get invited most recently as I met the owner, Phil Tom.
It's an invitation only, right?
It's an invitation, but it's just a very unique, small little par 3 on a 1-acre property, holes that go, 15 to 50 yards, and you use your pitching wedge the whole way through. You got to putt with your pitching wedge. And
so you can only use one club.
Yeah, and I wrote about it last year. You can find it, Lakeshore Open, golf's most unique event, and you can Google some of that to see the story. But also, as you talk with Phil, he'll fill you in on more details on the course. And it's unique, it's fun, it's a special event, and most importantly, we're raising money for critically ill children through Maximum Hope now. I think it's in its 3rd year, raising funds for them. And, again, back to golf, we're not out here golfing in a regular course, right? But I've now been able to meet people like Phil through friends of mine, and then other people that I've now traveled with, and it's about relationships and meeting people and having fun. And this is a special, fun, and unique event that gets a lot of laughs, and you have to be able to chip, and it's tough. I managed to make the cut last year, and just so you know, it's over. Yeah, there's a cut, and you come.
Well, that's right, and then people qualify to go to the championship round.
Yeah, we'll have maybe up to 100 people in the top 20 or so. We'll get in, and it's fun. We move it back to the tips, you'll hear the tips, and I caved in on the second round. It was too tough for me.
That is so fun, and we at Angel Park have donated to the cause because we have talked about maybe incorporating Angel Park into this in the future, but. That is so fun, and we're excited to talk to Phil a little bit later what we're going to do with the show, and it's about right now, or pretty soon, we'll do the par 5 with Fairway Jay, and then we're going to do the par 5 with Phil. So we'll get some more discussion on the golf tournament at that point too, which is great. One more question before the par 5. One last question. What's your favorite thing about golf?
So I'm from the cold weather. I grew up on ice skates. I played hockey into college, and we always looked forward, of course. I lived in this lakes area and worked nearby and looked forward to being able to get outside and be around the lakes. But golf, to me, has always been a way to get outside, still have the physical exercise, the skill and the challenge of it, but be able to, for someone that's athletic and played a lot of sports, again, the course management, that's kind of my handicapping. I've always been able to figure things out, even though I'm not real good at that in golf.
I love that.
But I love being able to play with, the groups of friends. I've been able to travel again recently and be invited to go play out of state up in Denver in the mountains in recent years with some friends that I made the traveling with to Scotland and Ireland. So that's what it's about, I think, to be able to enjoy your time with friends, be outdoors, have some physical exercise, and then challenge your skill level a little bit to be able to swing it.
I love that. And that's going to bring us to the end of the first segment of the show. So the second segment, Jay, is that we're going to play a par 5. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. And you ready? We'll just get started.
Here we go.
Shot number 1, which you've already addressed. I think I already know the answer to this. What's your favorite golf movie?
Caddyshack, yes. Yes.
Let's go.
Remember watching that a few times.
Tell me about the first time you saw it.
I can't I'm trying to remember the year it was out, but I had to be.
Oh, did you see it when it came out?
Yeah, I had seen it, and Chevy Chase and Bill Murray just back then, for those coming through, they're comedians and funny and just really cool to kind of see.
Yeah, good stuff. Question number 2, what's your favorite golf club in your bag and why? It sounds like it's not the pitching wedge.
No, and it's not the putter, unfortunately, and yet. If you want to learn the game, I think Phil's going to maybe tell you this. You practice with your wedge, and you learn the short game, and you'll definitely be able to. So I always, for some reason, it was always like 8-iron from 150. If I could find the driver, the courses have lengthened, and technology has been a huge impact on the game. But I always thought if I can get to the 150 and use an 8-iron, so I always seem to enjoy having that club and play with it, and a lot of improvement needed.
Question number 3, my favorite question. What's your dream foursome? So I'm going to give you 3 people, alive or dead, and I want to know who you're going to pick to play your round of golf with and where you're going to play.
Okay, so I've played some great courses out of this country, and there's a few that I want to play here still. And it would be, if there was ever a way to get on Augusta National, that would be phenomenal. But here in Las Vegas, I have not played Shadow Creek. And
Shadow Creek's special.
As far as I understand, one of the great courses, but also in the western United States. So those would be some I'd like to get on. Before Wynn was, I'd played the Old Country Club by the Wynn years and years ago. But I've played some really tremendous courses out here, as well as out at Lake Las Vegas and such. But
and before we get to the 3 people, I want to make a note because you had said to me that you had too many friends and you didn't want to hurt your friends' feelings. So why don't you pick 3 people that aren't your friends? That way we don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Right
on. So. I definitely, I'll quick comment. My brother and father have both been to the Masters, and I have not. But I would love to play a round of golf with my brother and include him in any place that I could get on, and that would be a memorable one. And I'm trying to get him out here and sometime play some of the nice courses, but Shadow Creek would be phenomenal. But I owe so much to some of my friends through some changes in my life that went on in early 2010 that really supported me through some difficult times. And those are some of the guys that I also have traveled with, and some of my best friends who I've been in real estate and worked in home building with. So those guys would know that I'd definitely want to include them on some of the things I would do. But I'm not an awe person on celebrities and such, but when I was coming through and playing hockey, Wayne Gretzky was the guy, right? Wayne Gretzky is, to me, one of the, not the greatest hockey players, but phenomenal what he had done statistically in the game. And now as I cover it and go to the Golden Knights games and see, there's nobody like it. And we have a friend in town, Phil and I, who actually has caddied for Wayne and doing it as well in an upcoming event. If I ever had a chance to even meet an old high school hockey coach that I coached with for years, his son, he had met Wayne Gretzky and it got his son during one of the drafts to do it. So I've always wanted to kind of meet Wayne, and if I was golfing and he was out here, that would be kind of cool. There's a few others as well, some people that I followed. Tony Dungy went to the University of Minnesota. I used to follow him when I was younger coming through, and I've watched his career progress through being an athlete, playing in the pros, and then as a coach, I always admired how he'd approach things, how he dealt with some tragic things in his family and his children's passing, and always respected. And I thought, Tony Dungy's going to probably be out at the Super Bowl this upcoming year. I might get a chance to attend it. I'm going to try through the media to get a connection, but to meet some of those guys, and you watch them now do the broadcasts. Pretty those guys at the age they're just a little older than me, but people I'd followed. And then as you watch sports, Kevin Harlan is always one of my. I think he's one of the best play-by-play. Love hearing him, love watching him. Hope that there's a time whether he does a Final Four out here sometime we could talk and cover that. And those are kind of the people as well. I'd love to get some comments on some of my coverage and stories about their insight into more of the games.
That's awesome. Question number 4. What's your aiming fluid? So if you're out on the course, what are you drinking? Are you mostly water, Gatorade, or do you dabble in the alcohol?
I'm not much of a drinker, believe it or not. So I don't drink much. Periodically, socially with some friends out, but a lot of water. Had my fitness in pretty good condition years ago. I did some high intensity interval training. I swim here in the summer just for exercise. Nothing like I'm a great swimmer, just a lot of resistance and health stuff. So I try to stay water and yeah, not much alcohol.
No, I love that.
And sugar. Try to keep my sugar intake down. So I haven't drank soda for years and years. So
that's healthy, and I love that. I just realized that the last two questions are the vice questions. So I like that. Question number 5. Let's talk about anger. You don't seem like you have an angry streak in you to me in the short time we've known each other. But on the golf course, when you hit a bad shot, are you do you swear? Do you throw clubs? Have you broken clubs? Do you have any of that in you, or have you been able to control all of that? Because on the golf course, those golf and especially swearing tend to go hand in hand.
Years ago, maturation, right? We mature a little bit. So years ago, there was certainly some of that. As a competitor, I always thought I should be doing better when I was playing a little bit more. But now, no, I don't. Even my friends, when I went up last year, and I'm not, I'm shooting 90s. That's probably generous. Sometimes when you're not playing, your short game goes to heck. So how can I get mad and upset?
Yeah,
and it's back to I'm just enjoying being out there. But there's definitely a time where I'd flick a club here and there and let out a few. Not too bad profanities, but.
I like that you're a mild swearer.
Yeah, no, So I can be patient, but I've always in my industry and business, I've always had an issue with I don't handle incompetence real well. So, and we all deal with that in different levels and customer service and things. And so I try to funnel that and keep it within. And you learn, I think that's the other thing about golf is it's such a game of teaching and just life lessons as well. You can use so much of the game to do that, and that's one of them as well as I think and control your emotions and your anger. And I talked a lot about that with poker as well when you're playing and how to read things and people and understand, but keep your emotions kind of in check. And no, I'm not always great at that, even today, because of the competitiveness a little bit, and I want to do well.
Yeah. I love all of that, Jay. I love your story. I really appreciate you coming on, man. Did you have fun?
Yeah, can't thank you enough. This has been great, and I look forward to as well learning a little bit more about our great event for the golf.
Yep, can't wait. Thank you again, and thank you for watching. Actually, stay tuned because right after this, we're going to throw it to another par 5 of questions with Phil Tom. So, thank you again, and we'll see you just in a few seconds. Okay, we're back, and we're going to do another par 5 of questions with Phil Tom. Phil, thanks for coming on.
Nice to meet you.
I really appreciate it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the event, probably mixed in with the questions, or if we don't mix them in with the questions, we'll get to it at the end. Sound good?
Sure.
All right, cool. So question number 1, you just listened to all of these, so you should be armed and ready. What's your favorite golf movie?
Caddyshack. We're agreeing with that one.
Caddyshack. It's gone in spurts. It was said all the time, and then when we started to get younger people on the show, it wasn't said at all. And now it goes in waves, and then it's the answer that comes up a lot.
The Bill Murray when he's hitting the flowers or something.
Yes.
Like
Cinderella story.
That's one of the greatest scenes in all of movie history. And then he tells the priest when the priest is having a great round and it's raining like cats and dogs. He says, "Oh, I don't think the heavy stuff comes till later, Father."
It's so good.
If I flip through the channels and I catch it, I can't turn it off.
Can't stop.
And I love Rodney Dangerfield is my favorite by far of all comedians.
You get a free bowl of soup with that hat? Oh, it looks good on you though. Question number 2: what's your favorite club in your bag and why?
Have to be the pitching wedge. We have to.
Let's talk about your golf course at your house.
Well, the pitching wedge. I say that because a number of reasons, but I took my son to see Fred Couples in 1991 do a seminar, or a little display up in Seattle, and he started he had all these kids there, and he started from the championship tees, and he hit probably 25 straight wedges to the women's tee in a beautiful grouping, and then I'm like my son, I pull out the driver, come on, Fred, you know. So he finally turned. He hadn't said a word yet. That's how he started. He finally turned to the crowd with the wedge, and he says, "This is the game of golf." He says, "You learn how to play it, you can play the game of golf. But if you don't learn how to play a wedge, you can't play this game." It was very, very powerful. And by the way, then he took out a driver, and he hit it over the trees into traffic.
Right after he gave his speech.
Right after his speech, yeah. But,
his inspirational speech about the driver.
But
That's the type of story that this show is built on. That's gold.
Yeah. Everybody asked me how I came up with the idea of the tournament I had in my yard.
Let's start. I don't mean to interrupt you, but did you build the golf course first, or did you build the golf course for the tournament?
Well, I'll get there.
Oh, okay, great.
So I grew up in Indiana, youngest of 6, and I used to play fantasy games in the yard. I'd drop like 5 or 6 balls down. I'd be Raymond Floyd, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and everybody, and I'd be chipping to win the Masters and everything else. I did that too. It's unbelievable how many people did.
Yes.
And probably the most beautiful thing about what I'm doing with this tournament in the yard is I'm transporting a lot of people back to their childhood for just a moment.
Right. Which
is so beautiful. But I'm probably the only residential golf course designer in the world. I mean, if you Google it, there's no such profession. And I everywhere I've ever lived from Indiana, and I've lived in a number of places, I would always be out in the yard or across the street or something and playing these fantasy games. Like I can still do it today. I mean, I can totally go in my own world. And so up in Seattle, I buy this house on the lake. That's why it's called the Lakeshore. And it probably took me 2 or 3 years to get 18 holes. But I got my 3 holes right away. I think I'm the only person in the world that could have found 18 holes on this property. If I wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Oh, I can put holes up by the street," or I can redevelop a little bit back in the backyard and put another hole or two. Anyway, it's a beautiful course. It's no longer. I don't think it's no longer there. A Jewish family, an Orthodox Jewish family, bought it with 8 kids, and I think they let it go someplace else. But so I had no intention, but I had 4 years, and then from day one, year 2000, like July of 2000 in Seattle, I called it Golf's 5th Major. We got like 13 players come the first year, second year 25, third year 35, and the fourth year 55 players came, and we had so much fun. One club, and then I decided, my office is still up there. I'm a portfolio manager, but I decided to move down to Vegas, and with no intention of bringing this tournament down here. But I bought a house that I loved in Scotch 80s, and it only took me about 4 to 6 months to design 18 holes. There's no room for a 19th hole on this property, but it's almost identical to what I designed in 2004. So it's going on 20 years. And immediately we had Golf's 5th Major the first year here, and this will be the 20th year, so 24 straight years of this charity event.
And I know your shirts are blue. That's not a coincidence. Why don't you talk about the blue jacket?
Well, if you're going to have a major, you're going to have to have a jacket. And I've copied a few things from Augusta. We have the chairman's cabin where every year.
This is great.
Well, what's really unbelievable, this course is like 420 yards long, okay? And the average player only gets 1 green in regulation per round on average.
Oh.
No matter if you're a +4 or if you're a 20 handicap.
I guess the greens are pretty small.
They're not that small, but there's out of bounds a lot of them right after the green. So
you have to chip.
It's like being at 11 at Augusta. You made a mistake if you're there and you're not in the water. If you're on some of these greens, it was probably a mistake. because you're too close to the out of bounds, and if you're going to shoot a good score, you just got to keep the ball in play. There's out of bounds on every hole. So the regular tees are only 420. The championship tees are only 24 yards longer, and it's probably at least 10 shots more difficult. It slightly changes the angles of the marriage between that golf ball and a wedge, which is a lifetime study to understanding. When this is a thorough examination of the wedge, you're going to have to hit left-handed if you put the ball in the wrong place. You're going to have to turn the club over and hit it backhanded if you want to keep the ball under some of the diabolical fences that you can put the ball on the wrong side of. You got to flop the ball, bump and run. I mean,
Do you have hazards? I know you have OB.
Yeah, there's
Do you have sand traps or?
Well, yeah. Well, we got pot bunkers on number 12, and they're unlike bunkers in America. I mean, they're like the European bunkers. If you get in them, you'll get penalized.
That's so great.
I don't think anyone's ever holed out from the 3 bunkers on number 12. But 12 is a rather easy hole if you just keep it out of the bunkers. And no, it's just so much fun. And I'll tell you that what kind of bothers me is we have somewhat of a monopoly here. This might be the most unique golf experience on the face of the earth, and yet just the people that play in my yard every year are enjoying it. We should have at least 50 courses in Vegas alone. Every city in America should have at least 50 golf courses.
Have you thought about going into the
design business?
Yeah, offering to design, because I can think of a couple of guys right off the top of my head that would want to do that.
Well, Shark Tank called me twice. I butchered the interview. I think they did. They said, "How much money do you need?" I said, "Maybe $5 million or something." And so anyway, because I have no sales, I have no business in that aspect, but no, if I was a younger man, I'd hang my shingle and I'd design courses. I met Howard Schultz of Starbucks years ago in Seattle, and what Starbucks did was prove that every cup of coffee in America was stale. If you bought Folgers in the grocery store, it might have been roasted 2 years before that. So you're actually drinking stale coffee. What I've proved to myself and anybody who plays the Lakeshore, everybody's yard, especially the nice homes in America, are not utilized. I'm in my yard every day when I'm home, my front yard, backyard, everywhere. If you go down Beverly Hills, you might see somebody in the yard, and it's always the landscaper.
Yeah.
I mean, and yet they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in landscaping, right? That nobody sees. I mean, the house I bought in Seattle.
That's such an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the house I bought in Seattle was a very famous Alhada family who started Long Acres, the racetrack, and I was the second owner. They put a $110,000 landscaping job on this house, and it's kind of a downhill runway or downhill driveway. And I enjoyed the rhododendrons and everything when I got up in the morning and went to work and everything, but after a while, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. My neighbors would have to go in the yard to actually see it, and yet $110,000, and I could design a golf course on half an acre to an acre, put 18 holes on it for probably $50,000.
That's so great. I love that so much. But, let's talk a little bit about how you chose which charity to work with.
Well, I started out as a charity event from day one in 2000 in Seattle, the Forgotten Children's Fund, which was they presented presents to low-income families that couldn't afford presents for the children. Everything was wonderful, and I delivered that for 2 years. And then third year, I went and the office was closed, and I said, one of the neighbors said, "Well, Make-A-Wish bought them." I bought them. How do you buy a charity? Anyway,
wow.
they merged with them or something. So I went with Make-A-Wish. I don't really want to say anything bad about Make-A-Wish, but I was with them for 18 years, and I think the last 5 or 10 years they weren't quite
the same
truthful. They weren't quite as truthful with me as they should have been. Because I always ask them every year. I said, okay, so 90% of the money's been raised goes to the wishes, and I always got the yes, right? I'm not sure that's true. I mean, I don't think it's quite as bad as United Way or some of the others, but so then I did 1 year for Eric Lloyd, the policeman who got COVID and died.
Oh, yeah.
And Mindy Lloyd I've known Mindy a long time, and so we did 1 year for the Injured Police Officers Fund, and then I played poker with Brad Garrett, and he might be my second favorite comedian behind Rodney, and he has a charity that he basically founded for Maximum Hope, which is similar to the Wish a little bit, and we deal with terminally ill children and families or parents that have to quit their job to take care of their child, or they can't continue to work if your child is having problems, and so 100% goes to the families, support them, and also they deal with the children's hospitals here, so the money stays here in Las Vegas. So it's beautiful.
I love all of that. I think that sounds like the most fun and inspiring and noble event, maybe running. It's so cool. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Question number 3. What's your dream foursome? So you can pick any 3 people, alive or dead, to play golf with. Who are you going to pick to play one round with? Who are you going to pick, and where are you going to play? Are you going to play in your yard?
Of course, but if you told me I couldn't play in the yard, the most beautiful course that I've played, and I think it might have helped with my design of Lakeshore, is Cypress Point. I was lucky enough to play Cypress in 1986, and
it's my father's favorite.
There was a survey years ago that over 50% of the pros said it was their favorite course, and of course Augusta would be right up. I haven't played there yet either, but it'd be my yard. Bobby Jones would have to be in the foursome. I mean, because
I've gotten him quite a bit.
I'd probably pick a lot of people before the money was huge in golf, because if you played back in Bobby Jones' days and so forth, you played for the love of the game.
That's right. You didn't make money.
No. So guys like Ben Hogan and so forth. I mean, Ben Hogan would almost quit the game. I don't know if you read the book The Match.
No, I haven't.
Oh my! You have to read it. You literally
match.
have to read it. In fact, you want to read it more than once. It's a beautiful, beautiful true story book. But but Hogan almost, because he wasn't making any money, almost gave up the game. He couldn't buy groceries or something.
Wow.
So I put Bobby in there. I put Bobby Jones in there,
Jones.
And then because of the aspect of the Lakeshore, I know Jordan Spieth did similar to what I did with his brother. He was chipping balls over the house growing up. He had big bowl holes, We didn't have a hole maker or something, so you're chipping into a bowl you dug with a shovel or something. And I heard him interviewed on that, and then I knew Jordan was so good because he's so good with the wedge. He even said one time he'd almost prefer to miss the green because he can get up and down a lot better than he can with the putter. And when he first came on the tour, he was a great putter too, but I think he's lost it a little bit there. But so I put him there. And then the one golfer that I think I was very close to getting on my course at one time, who's regarded as one of the best short game players in our era, Phil Mickelson.
Wow. You almost got Lefty to come play in your.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go to that story, but yeah, he's on the list. So you listeners out there that know Phil, will you have him give me a call?
Shout out Phil Mickelson. We know that you watch every week.
I do want to go. I do want to go a little bit more aspect on the Lakeshore itself. Mm-hmm. I trademarked Golf Swift Major 8 or 9 years ago with the attorneys and everything else. It was unbelievable that it was available. But I think what the Live tournament in the last couple of years, in a way, it conceptually helps people know what I'd love to see happen. This thing right here, the cell phone, mm-hmm. It's the young people in the world. It's going to be, there's some pluses to it, but it's going to be incredibly detrimental. And parents who have 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old boys and girls are going to have a tough time getting them off the cell phone to even have a conversation, And by the way, I have a beautiful 21-year-old daughter.
Who's probably on her phone a lot.
And a 44-year-old
We all are.
and a 44-year-old son.
You know,
And that's my only spread. I only have two. So
I would even say our generation is addicted to their phones. It's almost universal. It's not
oh yeah,
just young people.
I never thought I would be. But this would be a plus to Angel Park and the golf courses in America, because the courses are going to have a tough time getting the young people to be taking 4 or 5 hours to play golf in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So
We talk about timing all the time.
the beautiful aspect of this, my daughter turns 2 or maybe 2.5. I'm going to have her in the yard. I'm going to be teaching her the game with the wedge, so that we don't go to the driving range and get bored to death. So we don't go out on a big course where we really can't when you're that young and you're holding up people and everything else, and nobody's having any fun. Maybe they go to a different sport. But if you get them in the yard, enjoying the game, the beautiful game of golf, it would benefit the sport of golf immensely, I think, which is going to be really competitive to the new generation coming up. I mean that's that could be the biggest plus of the Lakeshore.
For sure.
And again, you got to come over and play the course.
I can't wait.
Because you're going to see that it really is the game of golf, and it really is. If you don't get about 10, 20 rounds under your belt, you can't possibly beat me or somebody that has experience.
I love it.
But once you do, they wrote an article in the paper. Brian Hurlbert, who he used to follow us quite a bit, so he retired. He wrote an article that I was dead serious. If I'll play anybody 36 holes on my golf course, and the loser writes a $100,000 check to charity, nobody's taking me up on it yet.
Yeah.
And I'm including Jordan Spieth, I'm including Tiger, I'm including anybody.
That's amazing.
Because you have to figure out
Course knowledge.
the idiosyncrasies of this course, and even though I'm a scratch golfer on it, if I get bad breaks, like a couple months ago, I shot 27 over par, and I'm the best in the world on this course. But
That's so fun.
so
Question number 4.
Question number 4.
What's your aiming fluid? And I'm curious. It sounds like this golf course is probably prone to a lot of drinking on it. I mean, do a lot of the guys is it too competitive for that?
And you touched on this with
Jay.
Fairway. The game of golf, I mean, it's often said that it shows somebody's character faster than any other sport you could play, And a lot of the game of golf, you can actually daydream a little bit, because you're hitting a drive. Okay, we've hit so many drives that it's probably going to be around the fairway, and you're hitting an 8-iron or something. It's probably going to be pretty close because you've hit it, but you have a lot of time to think about it. At the Lakeshore, and this is the beauty, if you don't concentrate on one shot, human mind can only can concentrate for a little while at a time, but if you don't concentrate on a shot, you're going to hit the ball out of bounds. So if you add alcohol into the mix at the tournament, you're not going to win. You're not going to win this Lakeshore. You'll still have fun. There's a lot of people who play that have no chance of winning. Most of their goal is to try to make the cut. But on the big course, I almost never drank. But you play with people that they down a 12-pack by the time the 9 holes is over. But
Some golfers play better with alcohol.
Well, they sure think they do. Yeah.
Well, it's actually been proven. My dad's got a great golf story where Tom Weiskopf got beat by a guy, I forget his name, but on tour, that was drinking gin and tonics at 11 in the morning, and then had it in a paper cup on the course. So that's kind of interesting.
If you go back to the book The Match, the 2 best amateurs in the world, I think it was Howie Ward and Ken Venturi, played Ben Hogan and who's the guy that won 11? The Perfect Swing. Won 11 tournaments in a row. Having a senior moment.
That's all right.
Well, anyway, Ben Hogan and he just died. They have a tournament in his honor in Texas. Anyway, These four.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Byron,
No.
Byron,
It's not Byron Nelson.
Byron Nelson.
Oh, okay.
Byron Nelson. So Byron Nelson and Ben Hogan play Cypress Point against Howie Ward and Ken Venturi. But Howie Ward shows up. He's going off into the woods and drinking. And he was a fantastic golfer.
Isn't that crazy?
He was one of the best averagers in the world and a fantastic striker. So anyway,
That's fun.
So anyway, no, mine would be at the Lakeshore. Would probably be water until I have a nice, wonderful party. It starts at 6 o'clock at night.
And then what are you having?
Well, I'm going to probably have a good single malt scotch, maybe. Well, the mayor, is my neighbor, Oscar and Carolyn, and
Oh, I thought you were going to call someone the mayor. The actual mayor? Both mayors?
So all my bartenders used to be. He hasn't been over the last couple of years, but Oscar would come over and have a martini, and I usually have one of his special martinis with him. But no, it's
so cool.
But anyway, it's a fun time. Even if you don't attend the golf tournament, the party is probably one of the better parties in Vegas every year. So
That's so great. Question number 5. You don't come off to me at all as having an angry streak. When you get frustrated on your golf course, when you aren't playing well, how do you react to that? And how do you control that? Or how do you let loose on that? What do you do?
I think the Lakeshore has taught me to just go with the breaks more than any others because there are so many bad breaks. There's a few good breaks on the course, but there's so many bad breaks.
So it forces you to just focus on the next shot.
Yeah, you just got to say reload, whatever. Fairway also mentioned a little bit about poker. Now, I was fortunate enough to win a World Series of Poker bracelet 15 years ago.
Congratulations.
I'm not a pro or anything, but
15 years ago would have been
2008.
2008. So that's when the young kids were coming up with the GTO. And the game was a lot harder to beat by 08.
Yeah.
I mean, 04 when the boom happened, or 03, I can't remember, to about 07 was great. But then all of these high school kids that got bit by the bug that were studying math, they came in. That's a crazy time to win it. What'd you win your bracelet in? Which event?
Well, when I won it, Phil Helm is a pretty good friend of mine, and when I won the tournament,
Really?
he said, Phil, you won the most difficult bracelet there is to win. I won a 5,000 shootout. You have to win 3 tables in a row. You have to take all the chips. So every time I see Phil, and then he's got like 17 bracelets, my first question to Phil, every time I see him, hey, Phil, how many shootout bracelets you got?
He doesn't have any?
No, he calls me a few words, and then...
I love that. Phil, thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, all right.
Wasn't this fun? Yeah,
that was
this
wonderful.
was great. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for watching. This is actually the end of the show now. So we'll be signing off. And until next time, hit 'em straight from your friends at Angel Park. Cheers.